Next, we're going to invite Professor Gururaj, who is head of Department of Epidemiology at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore, and it's a privilege to have him here. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Adnan Haider for this opportunity to be here, and the last 2 days has been really fantastic as we went through a lot of discussions with regard to the RS10 project. And today's seminar is also finding very interesting. After presentation from Dr. Kent and also from my colleague from Kenya, I will briefly share some perspectives on the trauma care scenario in India. As compared to Kenya, India is a very large country with a population of more than 1.2 billion, but it's only about 1/4 compared to the land availability in terms of the US. Its increasing literacy levels are becoming very evident. The income levels are increasing, even though we see a very large disparity in the society. Some of the communicable diseases are coming under control, but at the same time, we are seeing a growing challenge of non-communicable diseases, and especially injuries. India is also a country where there is huge diversity at all levels. We see a very swanky private corporate hospital right opposite to a district hospital that cannot deliver any services. We see a bullock cart that goes next to the latest Mercedes-Benz car on a district road, which also happens to be a national highway. We have almost 70% of the population who use mobile phones, but internet doesn't work in many government offices most of the times, or at least majority of the times. So it's that political diversity which is there. We have a huge land area. The states are different, very widely spread out with different levels of literacy, different cultural levels. So it's in that diverse scenario, we need to find answers to develop an efficient trauma care system within the country. Undoubtedly, in the last few years, injuries, and especially road traffic injuries, have been resulting in significant amount of mortality, morbidity, and disability. It has become an established public health problem, has been increasing over a period of time, has a huge impact on individuals and families, and on the society there is a very significant and unestimated socioeconomic impact. It's come to the recognition of the society as well as to the government that injuries are now a major problem. Before I discuss about the trauma care scenario, I would like to put the situation in context and also in terms of where we are with regard to the problem of injuries and road traffic injuries. This is the India Injury Pyramid for 2014, where based on estimates, we know that more than 1 million people die every year. More than 1 million people. About 30 million people have serious injuries, which results in a hospitalization. And more than 50-60 million will have minor injuries, and it's also very difficult to estimate that number. The important thing is the real burden of injuries is so high. Despite these increasing numbers, the problem is less understood because we do not have good quality data that is required for making any policies or programs at that level. Even the official figures that are produced by the National Crime Records Bureau indicate that, as per the official reports, about 500,000 persons die every year due to all injuries, and nearly about 150,000 people in road crashes. But there are different new estimates from the Million Death Study, from the Global Burden of Disease, from World Health Organization, and some independent estimates, which all indicate that more than 1 million deaths happen every year. And that's not a small number. Road traffic injuries in particular have been increasing over a period of time. From about 25,000 deaths in 1980, we now have about 150,000 deaths every year. And the ratio of deaths to serious injuries to minor injuries is roughly in the range of 1:40:70, based on some studies conducted within the country. The other major problem, again for which trauma care services, especially for attempted suicide, is a major requirement, is the area of suicides. Even here, we see that nearly about 140,000 officially reported suicides were registered in the country in 2013. And attempted suicides are at about 1:10, and those with suicidal ideations is just a guesstimate. Studies done in my own institution in the city of Bangalore clearly indicate that about 20% of emergency room registrations, about 10% of hospital admissions, and about 1/3 of total deaths, especially in the injuries, are because of injuries. So, in the hospitals, it is not something that we see, and this is data not from one institution, but from 30 institutions within the city where we did this Bangalore program for nearly 5 years on a continuous basis. So about 20% of emergency rooms are filled with injury patients and about 10% with this admissions. It's also important to understand that in India, it's a country with about 30% urbanization and 70% of the population still live in rural areas, and the injury burden is really high in the rural parts of India. Based on the official data that is available, we can clearly say the 25 metros, which most of us are familiar with, they account only for about 15% of all crashes, 8% of all fatal crashes, 8% of total road deaths, and 10% of injuries. Which means the remaining part of the whole thing occurs in rural India, where trauma care is deficient, it's not adequate, and is also not responsive. So it adds to the double burden. And there is a high burden in the rural India. Whether we go to urban areas or to rural areas, look at fatal or non-fatal injuries, one thing that clearly stands out is that road traffic injuries are the leading cause in all places. This is again data from our own studies, which looked at fatal, non-fatal in both urban and rural areas. And you will see in all the 4 pies, road traffic injury is the number one cause. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this graph, which is very popular in the field of trauma care, which traces deaths as per time. And it's very clearly known that there are a large number of deaths that take place in the first few minutes or immediately after the crash. The second wave that occurs over a period of next few hours, and the third wave of deaths which occurs over days. If we look at this for our own cities, over time we know that 1/3 of the deaths, they happen at the crash site. About 10 to 15% of deaths, they happen when patients are being transported from the injury site to different healthcare institutions. And most significantly, nearly half of trauma deaths, they take place in the hospital. And I think it is these two later parts, deaths that occur during transport and deaths that occur during hospitalization, are something that can be very effectively addressed with good trauma care systems. The first wave of deaths, the first 1/3 of the deaths which I showed in the previous slide, can be addressed with good enforcement and implementation of different interventions like helmets, drink drive programs, seat belts, speed management, visibility, pedestrian safety, safe roads, improving public transportation can all be done to address the first wave of deaths. But the second wave and the third wave of deaths, which are primarily occurring when the patients are in transit or when they are in the hospital, can be addressed with good trauma care. Further, we also know that, as Dr. Kent mentioned in his presentation, trauma care involves number of activities that needs to be done right from the time of injury and crash till the person is optimally returned back to his home. And to get the best out of this and to see that we can really make significant impact, one important principle that we all need to know is it's taking the injured person, the right person, to the right place at the right time through the right mode of transport. And I think this is the basic principle that should lead us to develop many strategies and to answer many questions. The elements of an effective trauma care system, the spectrum starts from the site of injury, and then the pre-hospital, the actual in-hospital care, the referral systems that need to be in place, the rehabilitation system that is required. All this needs to be coordinated, all this need to happen together, and at the same time needs to be put in a bunch of interventions that can be implemented at the ground level to get the maximum impact of this. And to get positive outcomes, these things need to be integrated and then implemented. Having known this, let's see what's the current scenario in India. Studies done over the last 5 to 8 years in different cities like Delhi, Lucknow, Kolkata, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, these are all the different Indian cities where there has been some small research that has been undertaken by interested researchers to understand the pre-hospital and the hospital trauma care practices. But they all highlighted the various limitations that exist in the system as of now and various inadequacies in both pre-hospital and hospital care. The conclusion that I can draw easily from all this research that has been done is that there are no policies, systems, or programs that need to be in place to address the injured persons. If you look at some of the very critical elements of this system and some data from our own studies, which I'll be using in the next few slides, clearly indicates some of the major lacuna in this field. For example, very small proportion of patients, they receive first aid at the crash site or within the next few minutes after the crash. So by and large, most of them, they don't receive any immediate first aid. What happens typically in India is when there is a crash, large number of people gather, few of them become doctors in that particular minute, they just graduate, they become doctors. Somebody makes a decision of what to do. They decide whether the shirt should be removed or the person should be fed up with water or he should be turned to one side. What should they decide? And then there is a big commotion. They inform the police come, or they get some ambulance or some local vehicle or a three-wheeler or a car, dump the person in that vehicle and then take him to the nearest hospital. And during that time, if media persons are around, they come and take good photographs. And then the local politician or the minister will come around, make an announcement of compensation of 100,000 or more, depending on the case. They order an inquiry, and then everyone disperses. This is the reality of many road crashes that take place in India. The place of first aid, in case for those who don't receive first aid at the crash site, is the nearest government hospital. And they should reach the nearest hospital to receive first aid. And the person providing first aid is mostly a doctor or another health worker present in that unit. If both of them are not there, the injured person has to go to the next available hospital to get the care. The source of referral for most of the injury patients, it starts from a government hospital and then traverses to the definitive care hospital over a period of time. So the mode of transportation, even today, in both the urban and the rural areas, are a three-wheeled auto rickshaw or a three-wheel vehicle, a private vehicle, or other modes of transport. So by and large, more than half the person are transported through these two means of transportation. The time interval between crash and the registration for non-fatal injuries and fatal injuries, if you see, there is a huge time lapse that takes place from the time of injury till the person gets definitive care. He may contact one of the healthcare institutions, but he gets invariably referred due to lack of physical and other things. From our own study in 2012, we observed that among the brain injured patients who, after a road crash, who come to my own institution, nearly 3 out of 4 have already contacted one other institution before they could reach our institution. And then we had 2 institutions, 3 institutions. So multiple institutions are contacted before they reach a definitive hospital. The situation in rural India is not very different, and sometimes I would say is much lower than what we see in rural areas. This graph indicates the provision of first aid, the time interval, the mode of transportation, and all the 4-5 fronts, the situation is similar. With regard to highway crashes, again, it is the same situation where people have to travel long distances to get first aid. If you look at the injury patterns, head and face injuries are the most commonest, and more than nearly half the patients have a brain injury. Injury to upper and lower extremities is about 30%, and internal organs somewhere between 5 to 10%. And within that severity distribution, we see that nearly half of them are mild injuries, about 1/4 are moderate injuries, and the rest are severe injuries. Which means that it should be possible to provide timely trauma care at least for 3/4 of the injured patients who are in mild or the moderate category. The severe ones, with especially polytrauma injuries, might require transfer to higher centers, but a large majority of them, 3 out of 4, we should be able to manage at different levels of healthcare institutions. But if you look at the healthcare institutions in the country, we have the best institutions in many of the cities. They are in no way less compared to the healthcare institutions of US. They are no way inferior compared to the healthcare institutions of Europe. Despite that, we have this wide disparity of private versus public, and we have differential levels of care. We have also monitored what happens when people come late, and you see here that people who reach brain injured patients due to in road crashes who reach a hospital beyond 3 hours, the mortality rates are much higher compared to those who reach the hospital, say, in 1 hour's time. If we look at what has been the response, so the thing is that injured persons can be provided care if right type of trauma care systems can be built in the country at different levels of healthcare institutions. Let me just spend next 2 minutes on what has happened in the country over a period of time. There have been, the first initiative to address trauma care in India was started in 1967, nearly 50 years back. And since then there have been many, many initiatives, and I have just listed a few of them here. Some of the important ones are the beginning of the EMRI 108, I'll talk about it a little later. The recognition of emergency medicine as a specialty in the country since 2010. The development of trauma care centers on national highways, again in 2010. The training of nurses and paramedical personnel, which is happening in many institutions across the country. A lot of legal directives from the courts of India to respect the rights of the injured and also for people to be good Samaritans has happened. The introduction of cashless scheme in select states for the immediate care of the injured, and there is a national trauma care program in evolution. But what the point I'm trying to say is that there has been some developments that have occurred, but the pace of these developments should have been much faster so that we can see positive results. At the same time, there are a number of organizations in the country which are involved in pre-hospital care delivery. From Red Cross to St. John's Ambulance to consortiums and independent organizations in different cities, to the Disaster Preparedness Management Program of India, the medical alert systems, many private hospitals, ambulance providers, there are many of them are partners in this. All of them, or majority of them, they focus on two things. One, running an ambulance system, and number two, training people to manage these ambulances. In reality, not that we do not have the facilities, but the thing is how to manage these facilities and how to run these facilities at a higher level where we can deliver good trauma care. This is an example of a district where you will see that there are both public and private organizations that are there, and there are 58 organizations in the public and about 90 healthcare institutions in the private sector. And that's a very large number in a district. And there are a number of healthcare facilities. And then if you look at the health facilities on a highway corridor of that district, you will see that there are primary health centers, there is a 50-bed hospital, and the situation is similar across many other national and state highways. So the point is, there are healthcare facilities that are available, but only thing, they need to be made more functional. These are the number of ambulances that are located. Many of them work, many of them don't work, but there is no proper coordination of running this. We recently just completed the assessment of trauma care facilities in a district hospital. The way it functioned is that even though this trauma care center was established and constructed in 2010, even in 2014, the hospital is not functional. And different reasons are there. There is a very major shortage of manpower, there is shortage of facilities, and then there are shortage of other supplies. In India, 108 or the GBK EMRI is the major national network of ambulances, popularly known with its number of 108. It functions in about 14 states of India and has about 8,000 ambulances that it runs. And about 10% of cases that this ambulance service transports is trauma, and about another 3% is the trauma due to non-vehicular reasons. Large majority of the transfers and the attendance this ambulance network provides is for maternal and child health, especially for pregnant mothers to be taken to the hospital and for bringing them back. So trauma still constitutes a very small number in this entire system. And they are all transported to government facilities where it is there. Recently, in 2013 onwards, the government of India recognized emergency medicine as a specialty, and now there are about nearly 25 centers across the country which runs an emergency medicine course for physicians. You will see in 2014, while 2,000 people graduated in general medicine, 30 people graduated with emergency medicine. So I think we still have a long way to go to catch up with the requirement that is required for the country. There is also a huge national trauma care program that is coming up on the national highways, which connects 4 different corners of the country. The significant thing is, despite all these things, somehow the public attitude towards injured still remains a big challenge. This is a court legal verdict that came in the year 1989, which said that any injured person should be provided care in any healthcare institution without asking for any legal or medico-legal questions. But in 2014, in a recent study done by Save Life Foundation, 74% of the bystanders, they said that they are unlikely to assist a victim of serious injury, irrespective of whether they are alone at the spot or in the presence of others. And the reason is that there is need for a law that would appreciate their Good Samaritan effort and in turn avoid penalizing them. Lastly, the research and many other things have clearly shown that there are many issues that needs to be addressed in terms of care, the absence of triage, communication, referrals, transport, support by governments, the economics, preparedness of the hospitals, deficient human and physical resources, EMS records, registries, surveillance, data systems primarily, and absence of systems, policies, and programs. The biggest concern is how to bridge the gap between the public and the private sector, the costs of healthcare which have been going up phenomenally over a period of time, the lack of uniform protocols, absence of research, and putting in trauma audits in many institutions. The questions: how do we bridge the wide geographical coverage between urban and rural areas when it comes to trauma care, reducing the costs, seeing that the existing systems becomes more cost effective, and integrating trauma systems at all levels. The way forward: there is knowledge that is available. World Health Organization, through its guidelines for essential trauma care, specifies very clearly what should be available at what level of the healthcare system, and that if it is classified to the different healthcare institutions across the country, it will to some extent help in bridging the gap. And lastly, we know there are certain things that we can definitely do to strengthen trauma care in the country in terms of meeting the needs of the injured person. And I think the decade is also an excellent opportunity because post-crash care is one of the important pillars of the decade of action. Thank you very much, and that was a very quick overview of trauma systems in the country.